He who conquers the morning conquers life. And I'm going to teach you how to change your financial life using this principle. But first, subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let me tell you something that almost no one dares to say. Most people aren't tired of life. They're tired of waking up the wrong way. And that sounds strange, I know. We grow up thinking the problem is lack of time, lack of money, or lack of luck. But the truth is different. And maybe that's a little unsettling. The way you start your day is silently deciding the kind of life you're living. Look around. Many people wake up already late, already tense, already reacting. Before even remembering who they are, they're already solving problems, answering messages, racing against the clock. And then they ask, why does my life seem out of control? Here's the paradox. The more you rush in the morning, the less you advance in life. It seems illogical, but that's exactly how it works. Now pay attention to this. It's not waking up early that changes everything. There are people who wake up early and remain lost. What transforms is, as you wake up. There's a kind of morning that doesn't rush. It aligns. It doesn't tire. It strengthens. It doesn't pressure. It guides. And when you discover this, something changes quickly. Sometimes in just a few days, because your mind stops fighting the day and starts guiding it. Perhaps you're thinking, this isn't for me, my life is too chaotic. Interestingly, that's exactly why it works. When everything is chaotic, the start of the day becomes the only place where you can still take control. And when you conquer that beginning, even if only for a few minutes, the rest begins to fall into place. Not by magic, by alignment. If you feel like you're living on autopilot, tired of just surviving the days instead of leading them, stay with me. Because understanding miracle of the morning, it's not about learning a nice habit. It's about learning to take the wheel of your own life before the world does it for you. The morning autopilot and its invisible cost. Have you ever noticed how you can wake up and still be asleep inside? The alarm goes off, you get up, do the basics, but your mind is in zombie mode like, okay, let's survive. And here's the detail that few people admit. When the morning starts on autopilot, the rest of the day tends to become a sequence of reactions. Here's the thing. Those who react all day long are exhausted by the end of the afternoon and don't even know why. Now think about it. The world grabs you within the first 5 minutes. Notification, message, news, bill, and that's it. You're already in the ring without gloves. And then you try to find peace, clarity, prosperity. But you start the day feeding chaos. Seems kind of contradictory, right? It's like wanting to lose weight by going to the bakery, just to look. Yeah, right. The miracle morning begins when you decide that your mind will not be rented out to the world. So try this simple test tomorrow. Before touching your phone, touch yourself. Sit on your bed and ask yourself, what is the intention of my day? No need for a fancy speech, just the truth. Take 3 deep breaths, talk to God in your own way, and choose a phrase to guide your day, something like, today I conquer the morning with faith and clarity. It looks small, but guess what? This small command changes your focus. And in the next topic, you'll understand why. First thought of the day, it's the steering wheel of your life. The first thought of the day shapes invisible decisions. There's an almost invisible detail that decides whether your day will flow smoothly or stall early on. The first conscious thought of the morning. It's not an exaggeration. It's neuroscience mixed with practical spirituality. The mind awakens in a highly suggestible state, like fertile soil after the rain. What you plant there becomes an emotional pattern throughout the day, so yeah. It's not just positive thinking, it's inner direction. Notice how it works in practice. If you wake up thinking, I'm tired, another difficult day, or this isn't going to work, without realizing it, you start speaking differently, choosing differently, acting differently. It's a silent domino effect. Now, when you decide, even without feeling like it, to declare something like, "Today I act with clarity," you're not lying to yourself. You're programming your internal system. Napoleon Hill already talked about this when he said that dominant thoughts become dominant reality. A simple yet powerful exercise. Choose a master phrase to repeat every morning for 7 days. Something short, strong, and true, like, "I act with faith before reacting," or "I am in control of my choices." Speak softly, but with intention. Does it seem too simple? Well, almost everything that truly transforms begins simply. And in the next section, you'll see why. The silence of the morning is the environment where these phrases truly take root. The silence of the morning as an environment of power. There is a kind of silence that is not the absence of sound, but the presence of clarity. And it almost always appears in the morning, before the world starts tugging at your throat. When you wake up and spend a few minutes in silence, without your cell phone, without conversation, without noise, something curious happens. The mind slows down and the heart begins to speak. Funny thing is, many people avoid this silence because it reveals truths. In practice, silence isn't about doing nothing. It's about creating inner space. Sit down, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and pay attention to what's going through your head, without fighting the thoughts. They come, make noise, and go. After a few minutes, a strange, almost forgotten sensation emerges. Presence. It is in this state that better decisions begin to emerge, not impulsively, but consciously. If you want to make this applicable, start small. 2 to 5 minutes already works. It can be by the bedside, in a chair, or even in the car before going to work. Take a deep breath, be grateful for something simple, and ask yourself, what really matters today? Don't force an answer. It will come. And when it comes, it changes the way you act. In the next topic, you will understand why. What do you declare next? It has the power to consolidate all of this, or throw it away. Conscious declaration. Words that align mind and direction. After the silence comes a key moment that almost no one takes seriously. What do you say next? Words are not mere embellishments. They are internal commands. When you declare something in the morning, even with a slightly hoarse voice and heavy eyes, you are telling your mind who is in control. Let's be honest. If you don't set the tone for the day, the world will set it for you, and usually badly. Here's something practical and simple. Speak aloud, even if it's softly. Something like, "Today I act with wisdom," "Today I don't react impulsively," or "Today I trust more and complain less." It's not an empty mantra, it's alignment. Over time, you begin to notice that your responses change. You think before you speak, breathe before you decide, choose before you react. That's winning the morning in practice. And you know what's most interesting? These statements begin to prepare the ground for what you haven't even done yet. They create internal coherence. And when mind and intention walk together, the next step happens almost naturally. In the next topic, you'll see how. Visualize the right day. Doing it the right way prevents bad decisions from even happening. Practical visualization. Rehearse the day before living it. After silence and declaration, there is a step that seems simple, but is absurdly powerful. Imagine the day before it happens. It's not fantasy, it's mental rehearsal. The mind doesn't clearly distinguish between what is experienced and what is intensely imagined. Crazy, right? When you visualize with intention, you prepare your brain to act better when the real situation arises. It works like this. You close your eyes for a minute and see yourself calmly going through the day. Imagine yourself responding with composure to a difficult conversation, staying focused at work, making a decision with clarity. You don't need to create a perfect movie, just key scenes. It's like telling your mind, when this happens, we already know the way. And when the time comes, you react less and choose more. Want to apply tomorrow? Choose a specific situation, that which usually throws you off balance. Meetings, family conversations, financial pressure. Visualize yourself dealing with it with firmness and serenity. This silent practice creates invisible confidence. And in the next topic, you'll understand why. What do you consume first thing in the morning? It can strengthen or sabotage everything you've built so far. What you consume in the morning defines your strength throughout the day. After aligning mind, silence, words, and vision, a crucial factor emerges that many people ignore. What do you consume first thing in the morning? And I'm not just talking about food, I'm talking about information, content, and stimulation. Let's face it, the first thing that enters shapes the rest. If you start your day with tragedy, comparison, and noise, there's no point in asking for clarity later. In practice, think of it as fuel. Would you put bad fuel in a car that needs to go far? So why do that to your mind? Replace doom scrolling with something that uplifts you. It could be a short excerpt from a book that expands your vision, a reading that brings perspective, or even an audio that reminds you of who you are becoming. Even a little time makes a difference when the intention is right. Want something practical? Separate a fixed source. For the morning, a book that strengthens character, vision, and faith. Read just one page. 1. If you prefer to listen, choose something that builds you up, not something that drains you. This small habit protects everything you've built so far. And in the next section, you'll see why. Write in the morning. Organize thoughts you didn't even know were disorganized. Writing to organize the mind and listen to oneself. After consuming something that strengthens you, comes a step that seems simple, but acts as an internal cleansing. To write. Putting thoughts on paper is like taking tangled threads out of your head and stretching them out in the light of day. Here's the funny part. Many people say, "I don't know what to write," until they start, and realize how much they were carrying without noticing. You don't need fancy text or complicated rules. It can be a simple notebook, a loose sheet of paper, a notepad. Write down whatever comes to mind. Worries, ideas, pending decisions, gratitude. When you write, your mind stops spinning in circles. It organizes itself. And when the mind organizes itself, anxiety loses its power. It's almost automatic, like closing open tabs in your browser. To apply tomorrow, write down 3 things. First, something you are grateful for. Second, something that needs your attention today. Third, a clear intention to act better. It takes 2 or 3 minutes. But look, when you finish writing, something curious happens in your body. And that's exactly what the next topic will address. Because moving the body in the morning seals everything that has been built up to this point. Morning movement. When the body confirms the mind's decision. After aligning mind, focus, and intention, the body needs to follow suit. Morning exercise isn't about aesthetics. It's about activation. When you move your body early in the morning, you send a clear message to your brain. We are alive, present, and in control. And yeah, even 5 minutes can make a difference. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. It could be a short walk, stretching, a few jumping jacks, or even going up and down stairs. The goal isn't to get tired. It's to wake up the system. The body releases energy, breathing changes, posture adjusts, and all of this directly affects how you think and react throughout the day. An activated body supports a firm mind. It's that simple. The most interesting thing is that, after this experience, you feel something difficult to explain, but easy to recognize. Readiness. You don't drag yourself through the day, you enter it present. And that's when everything starts to fall into place. In the next section, you'll understand why consistency beats motivation, and how small morning rituals build a completely new identity over time. Daily consistency, the small ritual that builds a new identity. Here's a truth that almost no one likes to hear, but that changes everything. Motivation doesn't sustain transformation. Consistency does. You don't win the morning because you woke up inspired one day. You win because you decided to repeat it, even without wanting to. That's the deal. Identity is not born from grand, isolated acts. It is shaped by small, daily rituals that no one sees. When you repeat this sequence, silence, word, focus, writing, movement, something begins to change inside before it changes outside. You start to see yourself differently. Not as someone trying to improve, but as someone who already positions themselves differently. And this changes invisible choices: what you accept, what you avoid, how you react. Little by little, the old automatic mode loses its power. Want to make this real? Don't think about forever. Think about tomorrow, just tomorrow. Commit to 15 or 20 minutes. Write it down, set a time, protect that time. That's how leaders of their own lives are born. Not from bursts of excitement, but from repeated decisions. And in the next topic, you'll see how. This routine begins to alter your external results, even without you forcing anything. When the morning changes, the whole day begins to respond. After a few days of experiencing this ritual, something curious begins to happen. The day begins to cooperate. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because you approach situations differently. You listen better, respond with less haste, and notice details that previously went unnoticed. And here's the twist. The circumstances may be the same, but you are no longer the same person. And that changes everything. Think of it as frequency adjustment. When the morning starts in sync, the rest of the day falls into the same rhythm. Conversations flow better. Decisions become clearer. Conflicts lose their power. It's not luck, it's preparation. Whoever conquers the morning enters the day with an invisible advantage. While many are still trying to wake up at 10 in the morning, you've already decided who would be there before 8. In practice, you start to notice small signs: less anxiety, more focus, more presence. People respond differently. Opportunities arise naturally. Solutions appear without excessive effort. It's as if life respects those who respect themselves early on. And in the next topic, you'll understand why. This process is not just a habit. It's a calling, something much bigger than productivity. The morning as a spiritual calling, not just routine. There comes a point when you realize this is no longer about waking up early or organizing your day. It's about answer a call. The morning becomes a meeting point between who you are and who you are becoming. Here's the deeper layer. When you get up with intention, you are saying that your life is not an accident. It is a mission in progress. Many people live waiting for a grand sign, a dramatic turning point, an answer from heaven. But almost always the calling comes silently, repeatedly, discreetly. It appears at the moment when you choose to stand up, be silent, and align yourself, even without an audience. That's when character, faith, and direction truly begin to solidify. In practice, this changes your relationship with time, with decisions, and even with God. You stop just asking for help and start asking for direction. You stop reacting to what happens and begin to walk with purpose. And when this understanding sinks in, something transforms inside. In the next section, you will see how this daily practice strengthens your faith and your confidence, even on difficult days. Faith strengthened by small morning decisions. There is a type of faith that is not born in grand moments, but in small and repeated decisions, especially early in the morning. When you wake up and choose to align your mind, heart, and intention, even when tired, something silent happens. Confidence grows. It's subtle, but it's real. You begin to realize that you are no longer walking blindly. You are walking with direction. This daily practice creates a solid inner foundation. On good days, it keeps you humble. On difficult days, it keeps you standing. You don't crumble at the slightest news, nor do you get lost in anxiety when faced with problems. Faith ceases to be just distant hope and becomes an inner attitude. You act believing even before seeing results. And the most interesting thing is that this changes the way you face challenges. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you start asking, "What is this teaching me?" This change in question changes everything. And in the next topic, you will understand how. This new attitude begins to influence your relationships and external choices, almost without conscious effort. When you change on the inside, the world around you adjusts. After living like this for a while, you start to notice something that's almost uncomfortably clear. Relationships change because you have changed. It's not that people suddenly got better. It's that you stopped entering interactions in defensive mode. And that changes the whole game. You listen more calmly, speak more firmly, and most importantly, choose better where to put your energy. In practice, this shows up in simple details. You don't get into pointless arguments. You don't try to prove your worth all the time. You don't carry guilt that isn't yours. The clarity built in the morning begins to filter choices throughout the day. You move closer to what builds you up and away from what drains you, without needing to fight, justify, or over-explain. And the most curious thing is that this generates silent respect. People sense when someone is centered. The environment responds. External chaos loses power because it no longer finds internal turmoil to lean on. And in the next topic, you will understand why. This way of living creates a profound sense of peace, even when life isn't perfect. The peace that comes from leadership, not from the absence of problems. There is a peace that the world promises but doesn't deliver. And there is another, much deeper peace that is born when you know. Where are you going? Even without knowing exactly how everything will turn out, this peace doesn't come because the problems have disappeared. It comes because you are no longer lost within them. And honestly, this completely changes the experience of living. When you start your day with intention, your mind falls into place before chaos tries to take hold. So when something goes wrong, because it will, life doesn't stop. You don't panic. You breathe, observe, and decide. Peace ceases to be something you desperately seek and becomes something you carry with you. It's a firm tranquility, not a fragile one. In practice, this manifests as calmer choices, wiser responses, and less emotional strain. You stop living in firefighting mode all the time. And that's exactly where something important happens. With less internal noise, you begin to hear more clearly what really matters. In the next section, you'll see how. This piece prepares you for bigger decisions, at those that change entire cycles. Great decisions are born from mornings well lived. There's a pattern that almost nobody notices. Major decisions are rarely made in the heat of the moment. They are the result of accumulated clarity. When you start the day aligned, at peace, and conscious, important decisions cease to be impulsive and become natural. That's the shift. You don't force courage. It appears when it's needed. In practice, this means that choices about work, relationships, money, and purpose begin to emerge more clearly. You sense when it's time to say no, when it's time to wait, and when it's time to move forward. It's not haste, it's conviction. A well-lived morning trains you to listen to your intuition without confusing it with fear or anxiety. And the most powerful thing is that these decisions are usually not noisy. They happen silently, almost like an internal whisper saying, "This is the way." In the next section, you'll understand why. This daily practice takes you out of survival mode and puts you in construction mode, something that completely changes the course of your life, from survival mode to build mode. When you don't conquer the morning, you spend the whole day trying to defend oneself from life. It's about surviving, putting out fires, and trying to recover from emotional damage. But when the morning begins with intention, something shifts in your inner balance. You switch out of survival mode and into build mode. And this is huge, because surviving is exhausting, building is strengthening. In survival mode, everything is urgent, everything is heavy, everything seems like a threat. In construction mode, you see process. You understand that not everything needs to be solved today, but everything needs direction. A well-lived morning creates this foundation. You don't wake up asking, "What's going to go wrong?" but "What can I build today?" even if it's just a little. In practice, this manifests in simple actions: organizing a part of your life, taking a planned step, learning something new, taking better care of what you already have. You stop waiting for motivation to fall from the sky and start acting consistently. And in the next topic, you'll see how. This stance begins to break old cycles, those that seem to repeat themselves year after year. Breaking old cycles with a fresh start every day. Cycles aren't broken by grand promises made on emotional days. They're broken by new beginnings repeated. And the morning is the perfect stage for that. When you start the day the same way as always, the result tends to be the same as always. Same input, same output. But when you change the beginning, even slightly, the cycle starts to crack. In practice, think about the patterns that repeat themselves. Anxiety, procrastination, strained relationships, impulsive decisions. None of this starts out of nowhere in the middle of the day. It all stems from poorly managed internal states. By taking control of your morning, you interrupt the trigger before it fires. You choose awareness instead of repetition. And that is liberating. The most interesting thing is that you don't need to solve the entire loop at once. You just need to break it down. Today, tomorrow, you'll break down again. And again. Until one day you realize that old pattern no longer holds sway over you. And in the next section, you'll understand why. This new way of living is beginning to bear visible fruit, not only internal, but also external. The visible fruits of those who conquer the morning. After practicing all of this for a while, something inevitable happens. The fruits are starting to appear. Not like a fireworks display, but like consistent results. You notice more focus, less confusion, more discipline, and even more opportunities arising. And no, it's not a coincidence. It's alignment. When you change on the inside, the outside responds. In practice, these results appear in very real areas. Productivity improves, financial decisions become more conscious, relationships become lighter, and the constant feeling of being behind in life begins to disappear. You start to trust yourself more because you see that you are fulfilling small daily commitments. Confidence is born this way, not from talk, but from practice. And the more these results appear, the clearer it becomes that this isn't a quick fix. It's a lifestyle, a different way of approaching each day. And then an inevitable, almost provocative question arises. Why do so few people do this, if it's so simple? That's exactly what the next topic will reveal. Why do so few conquer the morning, even knowing that it works? The answer is simple, but uncomfortable. Winning the morning requires responsibility. Responsibility is more frightening than difficulty. It's much easier to blame the day, tiredness, the past, or circumstances than to admit that the first few minutes of the day are indeed in your hands, and this eliminates any elegant excuse. Many people understand the value of all this, but prefer to postpone it. They say, when I have more time, when life calms down, when I'm less tired. But life doesn't slow down on its own. Those who conquer the morning don't wait for the ideal scenario. They create the possible one. They start small, imperfect, but they start. And this decision separates those who evolve from those who only consume content. In practice, what prevents progress isn't a lack of ability, but a lack of prioritization. It's choosing immediate comfort over silent construction. But there is a turning point. A moment when you realize that staying the same hurts more than changing. And in the next section, you'll understand how. Making this commitment changes how you see yourself, and that completes the entire cycle of this transformation. When you embrace the morning, you embrace who you are becoming. There is a quiet moment when something changes inside. It's not noise, it's not euphoria, it's not a public announcement. It's when you realize that he's no longer trying to change, you are already living differently. Embracing the morning means taking responsibility for your own identity. And that's powerful. You stop asking, "Who am I?" and start answering with daily actions. In practice, this translates to posture. You walk differently, talk differently, make different decisions. Not because you became a different person overnight, but because you started respecting yourself early on. The way you begin your day becomes a daily vote in favor of your best version. And repeated votes build character. Character builds destiny. And that's where everything closes in on the inside, but opens up on the outside. Because when you embrace who you're becoming, life starts treating you like someone who knows where they're going. But pay attention. This isn't an end. It's a turning point. And now that the whole path has been built, it's time to tie it all together in a way that resonates deeply from the very first seconds. Winning the morning means choosing who's in charge of your life. Now let me ask you something. For real, how have you been starting your days? In a panic, in a rush, in anxiety, or with intention, clarity, and faith? Because after everything you've heard here, one thing is impossible to ignore. The morning is not just the beginning of the day. It is the beginning, from you every day. And nobody builds an extraordinary life starting in survival mode. It's no use waiting for the perfect motivation, the ideal scenario, or for life to give you a break. Change begins when you decide that tomorrow will be different, even if only for 10 minutes. Silence. Breathe. Declare. Visualize. Write. Move your body. It seems simple, and that's exactly why it works. The power lies in conscious repetition, not in heroic effort. So I challenge you. Who are you feeding every morning? The old you or the new you? Who's in control when the day begins? You or the world? Because every morning is a silent vote on who you are becoming. And daily votes build identity, build destiny, build life. If this resonated with you, don't just let it remain a nice reflection. Apply it. Test it. Live it for a few days, and observe what changes inside and out. And now I want to know from you. What will you do differently tomorrow morning? Write in the comments. Declare it. Publicly acknowledge it. And if this content helped you see something you weren't seeing, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep walking with me. Here, we don't teach you how to survive the days. We teach you how to conquer them, starting in the morning.